Hi, it's Jerry Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Today we'll be answering the question, what is the median retirement savings by age? And we'll let you know whether that's enough for your retirement savings. Most entrepreneurs and families worry about money, so we created the Wisdomites framework to help you eradicate financial stress, generate a passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy. When it comes to the amount of savings that you'd want to have for retirement by age, we're really going to break it into like your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. I mean, that's roughly a good place to have it set at. The data that we're going to get is coming from the Trans-American Center for Retirement Studies, and then we will go over how much they say people actually have, roughly their median, each of the ages, and then we'll talk about just maybe a decent gauge, right? It's very difficult to say how much you would personally need without knowing like your entire financial situation. That means like your debt, your lifestyle, the city you're living in, things like that. But I can give you at least a rough range to have a feeling. What I can tell you up front is the median amount that people actually have and the amount that they'd roughly want to have, there's a big difference between the two. Now, when I'm coming up with the numbers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the median income in America and then I'm going to extrapolate the numbers that you'd roughly want to have saved based on that. So currently in 2022, the median income is $67,521. So if you're making that amount of income, then we'll give you the numbers based on that. So if you make a little less than that, you make a little more than that, you can sort of do the same amount as far as the calculations, but I will let you know how to do that. So first and foremost, when you're in your 20s, it's roughly estimated that the median household has about $16,000 saved towards their retirement, which is fine. Most of the data that you'll see, they don't actually really talk a lot about the amount that you want to have in your 20s. The big thing is we encourage you to get started in your 20s. There's lots of data that shows if you allow compounding interest from your investments, someone who starts in their 20s invests, I think the number was like $8,000 a year for 10 years, they would end up investing more than someone starting in their mid 30s, investing 8,000 a year until they retired at 65, just because of the way that compounding interest works, even if you're getting the same return. So we always encourage you to get started in your 20s. I wouldn't be as concerned as much about the money because that's going to come. But if you build the habit of living in a certain amount of your means where you're able to put a certain percentage of your income away, I would say roughly if you're able to at least put 5% of your income away, then you're off to a good start. And then you want to see, but ideally, if you can build it up to 10, 20%, that would be a really good place to start. You want to build those healthy habits now. Most of the time, what I see is when people are in their 20s, when they're saving money, it's not that they're saving it for their retirement, they're saving it for a car, or they're saving it for a baby, or they're saving it for a house, right? We're saving it for a large expense because we have a lot of things going on when we first leave out into the world. So if you're able to just get in the habit of saving money for saving's sake, just so that your money can grow and then it can give you the freedom that you need to make a lot more choices as far as how you spend your time, because you don't have to trade your time for money, and instead you're trading your money for time, which is a great place to be. When you're in your 30s, the median retirement savings is $45,000. That's what is actually in the accounts of most people in their 30s. Now, roughly, you'd want to have somewhere around 1 to 2 times your income. That would be a good number to have. So if you're somewhere around that median income of $67,000, then you'd want to be around $140,000 saved for your retirement in your 30s. As you move into your 40s, the amount that most actually have for their retirement, the median amount, is $63,000. But at that age, you want to have 3 to 4 times your income. So you'd want to be closer to $300,000. So you'd want to have, if the median income is 67, if that works for you, then you'd want to have around $270,000 saved by the time you're in your 40s. Ideally, a good way to think of it is you really want to get very close to about in your 50s that we're really close to about at least about half of our income is coming from our money. So that way we have a lot more flexibility, a lot more freedom. We're able to make a lot more choices that are beneficial to you, where you're not thinking as much about your money and your responsibilities and your debts, but you're able to start thinking about your passions and your purpose and the enjoyment that you have in life, your family, your business, things like that. As you move into your 50s, you would like to be somewhere around $500,000. So you want to have about 500,000. If you're using the median amount of 67,000, you'd be somewhere around 6 to 7 times your income, and that's where you would gauge yourself as far as if you're doing okay and keeping on track. That would roughly be around $470,000 if you're 7 times that income. But I usually would say, look, try to get close to that 500,000, get close to that half a million. What you'll find is $117,000 is where we actually are at. Most people, when they're in their 50s, they have about $117,000 set aside for their retirement savings, and that's usually the median that they're at. As you move into your 60s, and that's where most people are starting to get to the point where they're like, okay, I'm going to retire. Now, granted, if you can get to the numbers earlier, then by all means make the decision earlier. If you're someone who genuinely enjoys what you're doing, then push the number back. We're just simply talking about the median amounts, that this is what's generally happening. But it doesn't mean that that has to be your plan and your amounts. But if you are going to be in your 60s, you want to be around 8 to 10 times your income. So if you are at the point where you really want to say, you know what, I'm going to go for it, then you probably want to be around 8 to 10 times your income. So that amount ends up being, if you on the median, right? So about $680,000 is going to put you around 10 times of your income. Generally, you'll hear most people say you really want to get to at least $1 million. The reason is pretty simple. You're going to be living off of the return that your investments are making, and your returns have to cover things like inflation, and then also has to cover just whatever livelihood and expenses and lifestyle that you want to have in retirement. So if you're, let's say you've got a more conservative, where now you have about 5% as your returns in your 60s, because you don't have really that extra time to be losing a significant portion of your money. So instead of getting maybe that 10, 15, 20, whatever the return you were getting, now you're down in that 5% range. So you would be living off of 5% of your income. So if you're living off of 5% of 675,000, that's about $33,000 a year. Now, that amount, depending on your situation, may work for you, but that amount, depending on your situation, may not work for you. So you want to, I would generally encourage you to try to get at least to that million amount. And maybe what that means is we have to maybe go slightly longer to get to that amount, but I find that you'll enjoy your retirement a lot more. Just based on the inflation, the value of the dollar, the time that we're all living, things like that. Usually, it's going to be you'll feel a lot better, and so you'd want to have a plan that puts that in place. Now, at the same time, if you're going to retire even longer, if you're someone that wants to retire like early, then you'll need more than that amount, of course, because you're going to be retired for a lot more years. So you'll need a larger amount, because you probably still have a lifestyle and certain bills and certain things where you can't really get your expenses underneath that $30,000 range. Doesn't mean you can't. I'm just saying, generally speaking, that's just how the numbers end up working. So once we get retired, once we're empty nesters, everybody's gone. We're not maybe as active in our business, whether we've given it to the next generation or we sold it, however that worked out for you. You generally are like, okay, I've paid off a lot of things. I'm able to just use this money for my retirement, my lifestyle, my enjoyment. And so you'll just make that decision that makes the most sense to you. Now, if you're wondering what people actually have, the median retirement savings that people actually have is $172,000 according to the Trans-American Center for Retirement Studies. So on average, people actually have $172,000, and then they're making their decisions, from there as far as the lifestyle that they have and what they'll end up doing. This leads into, right, if we don't have the number that we have, then we may be able to have like a mini retirement. Maybe you take off a few years to travel, see some things with your family, enjoy life a little bit, with the plan of coming back to working in 5 years or so, 10 years or so, in a different capacity. That could be an option for you. It may make sense for what your plan is. Others, they just want to keep working so that they can make up for the difference. And so they'll just be able to save a lot more, where people are saving 50, 60, 70% of their income in the last maybe 5 years. And so they're able to make up a lot of lost ground and put themselves in a really good position. But I did want to share with you what the median retirement savings is by age, and roughly how much you actually would want to have. If you want more help understanding your retirement needs, I invite you to check out my free retirement planning that works video training at obsidianwisdom.com/training. In it, I give you the entire wisdometric framework that I use with my clients to help them eradicate financial stress, generate a passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy. Until next time, Wisdomites, remember, Wisdom is asking the right questions to allow yourself to get the right answers. Keep asking those questions, and you will keep getting those answers. Continue blessings.